Thank you. The time is now 7:01. I would like to call to order the Beloit City Council meeting at this time. Roll call, please.
All councilors are present.
Thank you. Item 2 is Pledge of Allegiance. Please, everyone stand. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 3, please.
Item 3A is a proclamation recognizing Jeff Adams for Beloit 2020.
Vice President Dunkin.
Can I please have Dr. Jeff Adams to please come to the front, please? And I'd like to read an official proclamation from the City of Beloit. Whereas Dr. Jeff Adams has devoted a significant part of his professional career and his personal time rebuilding Beloit's quality of life infrastructure, making the Beloit community a better place to live, work, and play for all of its citizens. And whereas for nearly 30 years, he has demonstrated an enormous ability to harness local resources and guided Beloit 2000, Beloit 2020 through its numerous community projects to redevelop Beloit's riverfront. And whereas while maintaining his professional career as a professor of economics and department head at Beloit College, he has dedicated numerous hours shaping community aspirations into visions, then plans, and finally into completed successful projects. And whereas he has demonstrated the ability to recognize community challenges and build partnerships among civic organizations, mobilizing them to invest and build on common interests. And whereas he was highly instrumental in leveraging local resources to attract outside private community investors and qualify for government matching funds to complete major projects. And whereas Dr. Adams has recognized the need to not only build the community amenities, but also to develop the means for encouraging their use and enjoyment. And whereas among the numerous projects and activities that have been influenced, shaped, and or guided by Dr. Adams include the removal of blighted properties and visual obstacles along the riverfront, the Rotary River Center, public park space, and the James Pavilion, the Beloit Inn, which is now the Ironworks Hotel, the Turtle Island Play Area, reconstruction of Riverside Drive, major artwork along the riverfront, such as the Celebration, Heritage Walk, Geoglyph, and the Landing, music at Harry's Place, Friends of the Riverfront, the Beloit High School campus plan, and the Confluence Environmental Center project in South Beloit. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Beloit, Wisconsin, recognizes the contributions that Dr. Jeffrey Adams has made to the revitalization of the greater Beloit area and extends our gratitude for his tireless efforts and perseverance, and wish him continued success in all his future endeavors. This is presented this 17th day of July, 2017. Thank you so much, Dr. Adams, for all of your contributions to the City of Beloit, and also your wife as well. So we are so grateful to you. Thank you so very much. And I can't say whereas again, but I'm saying it again. And so I would like for you to go ahead and give us a few comments or some words that you'd like to say tonight. Thank you very much.
Just a couple of paragraphs.
Don't worry, I won't cut you off after 3 minutes.
Well, I thank you. This is overwhelming. Over the last few months, as I've turn the keys to the 2020 City Center bus over to the kids before they started to suggest that maybe it was time to hand over the keys. I've been excessively congratulated, but your words are very much appreciated. I would like to make a few remarks from the passenger seat of that bus now, or the back seat of the bus. Just about 35 years ago, Judy and I arrived with a U-Haul truck and a 6-year-old Sam and a 3-year-old Will, and Daniel soon to appear in about a month. He celebrates his 35th birthday in August. We settled into wonderful occupations, a nice neighborhood, and a great place to raise our kids. We wish the same for those arriving in this summer and beyond. These aspirations, making a living, having good places to live, and educating our children, are kind of obvious, but achieving them is not always easy. In 1989, members of Beloit 2020, then 2000, began to make regular visits to this forum to present ideas for the future that would increase the chances of others making a positive decision to first visit and then invest in this place by taking a job, buying a house, sending kids to the local schools. Planting these ideas for the future is akin to the old aphorism, when is the best time to plant a shade tree? Well, 25 years ago, or today. There's an ash tree joke in here somewhere, but I'm... Over a quarter century ago, Beloit 2020 came to the City Council to plant some ideas. In many cases, it took 25 years to produce some of that shade. Occasionally, when we were planting those ideas in the late 80s and 90s, not everyone at this forum agreed. Several 5-2 votes took place. The nay votes were always predicated on the phrase, "I got calls from citizens." This before email and texting. But I do want to ask you to think about who made the calls from the future. We were at Music at Harry's Place Friday night, and Turtle Island was buzzing with activity. Who made the calls in 1993 for those young citizens? Well, that's why planning and visioning is essential. That's how you can represent the future for the children and grandchildren who can't call to complain or write a letter to the Beloit Daily News. I know you're busy with a packed agenda and a great big packet tonight. But I do hope that you can find ways to set aside time to vision Beloit 10 or 20 years into the future. Again, thank you very much for this honor.
Oh, just a moment.
I have some. Okay. Somewhere in that pocket. Try to scan. 3B, please.
Item 3B is a proclamation declaring August 1st as National Night Out.
Whereas the National Association of Town Watch is sponsoring, just a moment. Thank you, Dan, for coming forward. Whereas the National Association of Town Watch is sponsoring a unique nationwide crime prevention and community safety program on August 1st, 2017, entitled National Night Out, and whereas the 34th Annual National Night Out provides a unique opportunity for the City of Beloit to join forces with thousands of other communities across the country in promoting community policing and crime prevention efforts, and whereas the Beloit Police Department, Beloit Area Crime Stoppers, and the Beloit Fire Department play a vital role in collaborating with our community to reduce crime, fear, and disorder in Beloit, Wisconsin, and are supporting National Night Out locally And whereas it is essential that all citizens of Beloit be aware of the importance of crime prevention and community policing programs and the impact that their participation can have on creating and sustaining safe neighborhoods in Beloit. And whereas police community partnerships, neighborhood safety, awareness, and cooperation are important themes of the National Night Out program. And whereas the city of Beloit has a long-standing tradition of gathering within our many neighborhoods to celebrate and further both law enforcement and community partnerships. Now, therefore, the City Council President of the City of Beloit does hereby proclaim Tuesday, August 1st, 2017 as National Night Out in Beloit and encourages residents to acknowledge the event with their neighbors by hosting block parties, cookouts, youth programs, and other such activities that strengthen and promote neighborhood spirit and police community partnerships, presented the 17th day of July, 2017. Kevin D. Levy, President. So, thank you.
Just real quick, couple quick plugs. National Night Out, of course, is August the 1st. We're going to hold our kickoff at the River Rotary Center. There was some question. It's going to start at 5 o'clock. We're hoping to get people out in about an hour. We'll have a list of all the block parties that are available. We can even hook you up, partner up, to make sure everyone gets a ride. Right now we have about 14 block parties so far registered. The application date is the 21st of this month. The applications you picked up, fire department, police department, or online at city website. So I hope to see you guys there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4, public hearings.
Item 4A is a public hearing on proposed substantial amendment to the 2015-2019 Consolidated Plan to incorporate 2 neighborhood revitalization strategy areas.
And before we have the presentation, Councilor DeForest and Councilor Dunkin will have to recuse themselves at this time.
I'm going to go through a somewhat brief, not really brief, PowerPoint on the neighborhood revitalization strategy areas, and then you can hold the 2 public hearings, and then your action. There will be no action on this tonight.
Okay.
So we're doing neighborhood revitalization strategy areas for the Maryland Hackett neighborhoods. We're going to start. Which way? Which button am I hitting? Right, left?
On the right. And
There we go. So the NRSA process really began back after we had a number of homicides in 14. Concerns were raised about increasing crime. At the same time, we had increasing poverty and increasing property deterioration. We were starting to see a negative trend in the community. At that time, a group of us, including Terry Downing, Andrew Yonke, a number of us started kind of mapping, and the police department started mapping what was going on in our community. We did identify that we thought 2 neighborhoods had more decline, more issues, and those were the Hackett and Merrill neighborhood. So we started focusing in to do a neighborhood revitalization strategy area. When our city manager came on in June of 15, she did some community listening sessions, and then we began consultation with some local agencies and research on this and to kind of try to pull together what all the concerns were of the community. So this is a list of some of the community concerns and needs that were identified. We were able to break them down into 3 general areas: neighborhoods, people, and public safety. So on the neighborhood side, it's really about the housing stock, transient populations, values, low values, deteriorating properties. People, there's a whole variety of issues, from criminal behavior to not having enough youth programming to people not knowing services are there. When Terry Downing and Mark Perry sat through some of those meetings, and people would say there's no program that does this, and they knew that they did, which means there's a problem with getting information out. And then public safety, people were very concerned about crime, so there was a need to enhance overall
people's sense of safety and security, that even if some areas were safe, people didn't feel safe. And so we felt that was something that needed to be addressed. So the 2 NRSA neighborhoods are identified. They are a little bit broader than what we normally had considered Hackett and Merrill. We included the whole census tract. So Hackett goes west to McKinley, and Merrill we actually included all the way to the river, which it doesn't usually include all the way to the river. So kind of what is a NRSA? I think people have talked about it as all different things. It is not a grant. A NRSA is a neighborhood revitalization strategy area, so these 2 neighborhoods are NRSAs. And it is also a plan, so it is an amendment to our 5-year plan. So every 5 years we adopt a 5-year consolidated plan, which corresponds with our CDBG program, and you'll also see an annual plan. This will be an amendment to that plan to include targeting these areas. And then the next 3 bullet points really talk to what the regulations say it is. It has to be a sufficient size and scope to have a positive impact on the decline of a neighborhood. Assesses and identifies the needs of residents. There's a big focus on resident involvement, and then bringing together a variety of stakeholders and partnerships to solve these problems. And it also, the advantages are that it provides a detailed strategy for addressing specific needs in a neighborhood. So instead of just focusing citywide, you're really focusing in on the concerns of the smaller area, and it allows the city to use the CDBG funds more flexibly, so we can increase the amount of funding going to public services, and we also are able to aggregate some of the housing activities to try to provide kind of a mixed income result. So as a result of the whole process, we came up with this vision statement goal, the goals and the strategies, which I will not read to you. And then when we developed the strategic plan, when the manager with the council did the strategic plan, a lot of these same goals and vision are included within the city's strategic plan. So safe and healthy, stable neighborhoods, a lot of these themes are also in our strategic plan. So they kind of work together. So we focused in 3 areas. The first is revitalizing neighborhoods. So these are the 3 objectives, which is improve the quality of the housing stock, to reduce the number of vacant and abandoned properties, and to increase the percentage of long-term residents in the neighborhoods. The lead agency in this will be the city's Community Development Department, and we will work through some of our existing programs that we have. So this will give you an idea of the activities that are already underway, that we're already doing. So the city will do a systematic review of deteriorated properties. We will coordinate code enforcement efforts. We will continue to do some purchase rehab resale. Right now, as you may recall, 310 and 349 Euclid are under construction or under reconstruction. Once those are completed, we will actually bring the council through, let you see the after. I know some of you didn't get to see the before, but you can see the after of what we've done with some of our funding. And we will continue to do that as opportunities come up with our home fundings, and then we will continue with our housing rehab and construction loan program. And then our partners are also going to do purchase rehab resale. Community Action has been active in the Merrill neighborhood since 2007. And then NeighborWorks Black Hawk Region, formerly NHS, continues to do houses. They sold one on 354 Highland. And they have one on 530 Highland that is either sold or is in the works of being sold. And then they also have one at 911 Euclid. And they will continue, as program income becomes available, to continue to do those projects. We have a new construction house underway right now at 340 Highland, which if you've been by there, windows, roof, all the outside is done. They're still continuing to work. We are currently trying to work with them to take one of our vacant lots on Highland and do another new construction. And then we're working with NeighborWorks to do first mortgage loans, because we had discovered that there were houses were of a such low value that people could not get a traditional bank loan, and this would allow them, NHS would work with these people to give them a smaller loan, and so that we could get homeowners into some of these vacant houses. And then these are the set of objectives which are related to resident empowerment, the lead agency being Community Action. However, one of the objectives relates to the Equal Opportunities Commission. And Mark Perry is here with us tonight, if you have any questions of him. But really what we felt that there was a strong need to connect people to services, to empower people, to know that the neighborhood could be more, and to try to figure out how to partner with those residents to improve conditions. And it really varied for those of you who are at the listening sessions, I think you were at both, is that there's different issues in each of the neighborhoods. I think there's more people issues in the Merrill neighborhood and more property issues in the West Side neighborhood. So these objectives are, I won't read them to you, but they're really related to increasing job training, life skills, programming for youth, trying to get residents involved, and connecting them to financial and supportive resources, because that was really identified as a need, is helping people because they really are in dire straits financially, to try to get them the resources they need. And then the 8th objective, which came out of the listening sessions, was to improve race relations, which the Equal Opportunities Commission has taken an active role. They're coming up with some strategies and a plan for that to help with that. So what activities that are already underway, you may recall that we funded a systems navigator or a resources navigator with some of our CDBG funds. So that is underway. Personal responsibility education program, adult preparation program to prevent risky behaviors in adolescents, and then partnering with the Boys and Girls Club to provide after school and summer program for the Hackett and Merrill students. And then in terms of public safety, obviously the Beloit Police Department is the lead on this. So they will be implementing community policing strategies, and they will be enhancing statistical data analysis in order to assist with crime analysis goals and strategic development. One of the big issues that they had was that the data wasn't being manipulated and evaluated to ensure that we had good, solid, smart reporting of the numbers. And so they are vetting the data. They're really looking hard at the data to make sure the data that they are using is valid and is really good data. And then they're improving transparency and communication regarding crime and prevalence of crime, which I think has really helped and already have the police be able to solve some crimes, because people, I think, are starting to trust. And so I think they've already got some of these things underway. So the activities underway already with them is the conversations with the community that the police has been doing, the public education meetings. They're going to be realigning the beat areas to correspond with these neighborhoods. They're going to be doing two-person cars. I feel like I'm saying the police stuff, but I don't know if the chief is here. And they're doing everything they can to try to figure out a way to better serve these neighborhoods. And then the crime analyst position that was created, which helps kind of evaluate the data and kind of vet that data to make sure we have really good data out there. So then the NRSA approval process began obviously way back in 15, but the more recent process, once we had this draft plan, we took these objectives and the vision, the goals, the strategies and objectives out to the Hackett and Merrill neighborhoods. We did direct mailings to every single resident, and we got a pretty good group out for each session. We presented the draft strategies, so on June 13th and 14th. On June 28th, the Community Development Authority got a presentation and did recommend approval of the plan as presented. Tonight is the night for your public hearing on the NRSA and the amendment to the annual action plan, and then at your next meeting on August 7th, we'll have it on your agenda for action. On August 7th, what you'll actually take action on is a substantial amendment to the consolidated plan, which will incorporate all of these objectives. And then you'll do an amendment to the annual action plan and budget, because we are suggesting reprogramming prior year CDBG funding to NRSA activities. We have over $300,000 that's sitting in prior year funds, and we are very concerned that if we don't get these allocated and spent, that we will lose those funds to our community, number one. And number two, we think this is an opportunity to use those funds in the neighborhoods right away to kind of jump in, feet first. We were originally going to wait till 18 to do that, but as we all know, the money takes forever to get in here for the feds to adopt a budget. This will allow us to get this money spent starting this year. And so this is the reprogrammed money. The top shows the categories that they're listed in, and then the bottom shows what we're proposing to fund them, what programs are proposing to fund. Your staff report also has more detail on the years of funding, of what years, which project was from which year. But we're proposing to fund the Resources Navigator position for $75,000, and this, I think, will go through 18 family services for a community social work position, which will work directly with police and fire to try to deal with some mental health issues out in our neighborhoods. And then NeighborWorks doing down payment assistance, because we all know that rents are high but values are low. So if we can find a way to get people the down payment assistance that is hard for poor people to raise, we think that could be a step towards getting people into home ownership. And then continuing to fund our housing rehab loan program, because we'd like to be able to target those resources in these neighborhoods to try to get more of these houses upgraded and keep the current people in those units. And then some money for code enforcement to continue that strategy of continuing to do the code enforcement efforts. And with that, I'll take any questions from you before you open your public hearing, if you have any.
Are there any questions from councilors before we open the public hearing?
Oh, and I want to, before you guys speak, I want to thank Terry Downing for all her hard work on this, because I'm presenting it tonight, but she is the one that did all the heavy lifting with her partner in crime, Mark Perry. And I mean, the chief did his piece too, but the big meat of it is the resident empowerment and the neighborhood revitalization, and they spent many hours working on this. So I just wanted to say that before.
Thank you. Councilor Forback.
I'm wondering, how are people in these neighborhoods going to know that they're going to be able to get money for a down payment? I mean, if somebody called the city, is there a liaison with the city, with is it Rock Works or whatever?
It's NeighborWorks, Black Hawk Region, which is the former Neighborhood Housing Services.
Okay.
I will never be able to,
Yeah,
it's going to be NHS to me forever, but they didn't change their name. So we would refer them to NeighborWorks, Black Hawk Region.
Okay.
And my understanding is they will be doing a mailing to the people in the neighborhood to let them know that the program is available.
Okay. And I know that before we ourselves had a loan, am I right? That the city was able to give out some loans?
We do housing rehab loans.
Right.
I mean, all the time, but we don't do down payment assistance ever.
Okay. And I've heard from a couple citizens saying that it would be helpful if whoever our staff person is for those rehab loans might be available on some hours on Saturday. I'm just throwing that out, saying I've heard that. I don't know if that's ever possible.
City Hall's not open on Saturday,
Right.
so I'm not sure how that would work.
Okay.
Because I don't think we can just open City Hall on Saturday to let citizens come. I mean, because she uses her computer and to do the whole program, so it's one of those things that it's not just like having office hours late. City Hall is actually closed on Saturdays.
Right. Well, just something
Yep.
to think about that I've heard from some people in the Merrill neighborhood. So.
And is that, I'm trying to see, is that mainly because of availability of individuals looking for information? If they're working during the day, it may be hard for them to get here. I don't know if an evening would help. I mean, I don't know. Because part of me kind of hear what you're saying, Councilor Forback, is saying that at some time we got to be available when people may need us. If I'm working during the day and I can't get here by 5, I don't know if there's a way to look at setting up a time in the evening. And I'm not saying every day, but hey, a couple hours in the evening, here's where we are. And I know everybody's evenings are booked, but is this as we talk about customer service, is this something that we could take a look at just to see if it's a possibility?
I guess I would rather see people ask for an appointment later, because
Yeah.
we don't want people just working here after hours
Right.
and sitting and because we don't have an overtime budget
Right.
in my department. So we would be having somebody come in later to work later.
Right.
And I would hate for them to just have like open hours for people to walk in
Right.
and nobody comes.
And that might be the way to do it, just say by appointment. And I mean, I kind of like that. At least you're putting the option out there. If I call and say, hey, I can be there by 6, then you could say, okay, someone will be here to meet you. So I kind of like that. So at least we can.
I was just going to say that moving forward, we can look at what options are available and within staff constraints still see how we can provide the most flexible service possible.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Preschel.
I just want to make clear, this is not a grant we're applying for. This is just a plan to use the already existing federal funds that we get in grant in a little different way, in a more targeted fashion.
Yes, it will.
I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, it will allow us, so right now we're capped at 15% for public services, and this would allow us to fund public service agencies outside of that cap if they met an objective, and then they also have to be a community-based development organization, which every nonprofit's not going to be. And so it would give us greater flexibility to, because what often happens is you have a need come up, they apply for public services, and you have to cut somebody else to fund their program. And this would allow you to fund some of our, the usual good programs, and also fund the additional need that's in these neighborhoods. But there isn't any new money. This is the same pot we're receiving.
It's a way of doing more with what we have
Yeah.
and our limited resources, and finding more flexibility with them. That's what I was hoping to make,
Yeah, and we're targeting the resources, so we're being thoughtful about it. So instead of, we get the applications and then everybody's doing stuff citywide, I think the way Terry's explained it is you're kind of providing a structure, like, this is the plan, you see how you jump into it, and we've met with the residents, these are the concerns, these are the needs that they've identified, and then it kind of gives somebody a place to jump in, and maybe somebody wants to provide a service. They may not need our money, but at least it gives them kind of identify what the needs are. I mean, I have gotten, when this first came out, we had gotten a couple of requests as we were going through the process to get copies, because there were a lot of people who wanted to help those two neighborhoods, but they weren't sure what the needs were. They weren't sure what people needed. And so this also gives kind of a blueprint of what the needs are. These are the things residents are asking for. And so that even if they don't apply for funding, they might be able to apply for other grant funding to provide the programs that are needed. So it's intended to be, kind of a framework, for people to figure out how they want to help. Because when city manager had those listening sessions, we got calls from a lot of people, and I think Sheila DeForest got calls from a lot of people who were like, I want to help, I want to do something. And we weren't at a point to say, these are the needs we found. And so now we've done that. So if there's some churches who want to help out with their own resources, we've given them a sense of what those concerns were that were raised by residents, and the things they need and the services they need. So it's not just about, it's also showing what is needed in those neighborhoods.
And how does this relate to the larger area that beyond the borders of the NRSA areas that are defined? Because there's a larger west side, there's a larger east side, and the west side is more my concern, and I'm more familiar with it anyway. That there's a lot of areas beyond that, those borders, that need almost as much help as the ones that are within the district. So hopefully this is like a stepping stone to get further down the road. It's not just limited to that,
And for a consolidated plan amendment, for a NRSA plan, you're not going to be able to go into a lot of those neighborhoods because they're not going to meet the income thresholds. So the city may be looking at doing planning that's not CDBG related, but may, want to look into doing neighborhood planning like we've talked about with the Colac development. You may want to do a little development plan there, but they're not low mod, and so you're not going to do a plan like this, but you could do something similar to try to identify what the needs are and what the concerns are. It just wouldn't be a NRSA, because
that's going back
specific.
to the source of the funding being federal funds, having certain rules and stipulations that can be used in certain ways. So that all goes back to that. So,
but we can still do a plan to figure out what the needs are in those areas as well.
Anything else, Councilor Preschel? Councilor Blakely?
Piggybacking on what Mark was just saying, I think that success for Merrill and Hackett neighborhoods will help provide models for other neighborhoods in the city. So we will have more to go from and some accomplishments to turn to in very recent history.
Yep, I agree.
Anyone, if not, I have a couple. When you talk about partnering with the Boys and Girls Club to provide after school and summer programming, are we looking at transportation, cost? Because as far as some individuals from the Maryland and Haggard neighborhoods may not be able to meet some of the costs of the Boys and Girls Club, how are we talking about getting them there? And how are we going to get the word out to them to say we have this opportunity available to assist with you?
If I may, on this issue.
I actually don't know the answer to that one. So
we have at least one example where the request was for transportation. And in fact, the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA were working cooperatively together on some swim lessons for kids. And quite frankly, I don't recall which of the agencies had received some grant funding, but they were working in partnership, and the one piece that they needed some assistance with was how to transport the children back and forth, and the city was able to step in and provide that assistance for a limited time period during the summer. So I think that's just an excellent example of how we're already working with multiple agencies with the common goal of providing as much service as we can. And so it depends on the circumstance, but that is an example of how the city can cooperate and participate in that kind of additional programming.
And so have we taken a look at the cost membership, after-school activities? Will this plan help address those issues as well? I'm seeing Mark shake his head, so, okay. I just want to make sure that as we're talking about getting kids to these organizations, that's great, but if we have them over there and they can't afford any other activities, that could create another hardship or dilemma there. And then I got your email about the homeless population, and this is something that we've discussed. And I see the agencies that provide services. First of all, is this out there in the public where if I'm a homeless individual, I know where to go to get the assistance? Have we seen a decrease in the homeless population? And then the agencies that you provided for me, I know that they have time limits. What happens to families once if I go to Hands of Faith, or is there someone there to help me get into some housing? Is there a long waiting list? And I know this is a bunch of questions, but I guess what I want to make sure.
So Hands of Faith case manages. So they take families. They don't take singles generally. They take families. So they take people with children generally. And then they case manage. They determine what their needs are, and they will develop a plan for them. And whether it is getting a job, whether it is finding housing, Jeff Hoyt will work with them. They don't just get kicked out. He works with them to reach an acceptable, to get them into housing, to work with them to figure out what their issues are, because it's not usually just that they couldn't pay their rent, they don't have a job, or they don't have a job that pays well enough, or he works with them on those issues. Project 1649, they also case manage. All of those agencies that we fund, the reason that there's not a local goal just for providing homeless services is because we feel it's important that that case management be part of it, or education and budgeting and life skills be part of it. So we don't just fund somebody who provides a bed. We provide funding to agencies who serve the homeless population, but who do it through working with the households to not be homeless any longer. And then we also fund programs like House of Mercy, who try to stop the people from being homeless by forestalling eviction. So, and we fund, as Terry reminded me today, we fund the Home Companion Registry to make it possible for older people to afford to stay in their homes. So there's a variety of programs we fund that we try to stop them from being homeless. So the goal is really not to wait till they're homeless and deal with the situation, but to try to put the services in place so that they don't become homeless. And so the programming we're focused on is to try to make it like more affordable youth programs that came up in the Merrill neighborhood that the Y is too expensive, and trying to find affordable youth options for them, to get all these services to them at an affordable level, so that they don't have to pay this huge amount and then can't afford to live. So, we're trying to put the services in place so that they don't become homeless, but there are a number of agencies that do provide homeless services, and I don't know how the count is going of homeless because, unfortunately, I don't. I know that Mark participates in all the homeless counts, but I don't, so I don't know those numbers of whether they're going up or down. I can't speak to that.
Is it okay if I ask Mark if he's noticed
Mark.
any change? And then with that, the organizations and the agencies that you listed was great, but I think they're addressing people who are not homeless yet, so we're trying to prevent them from becoming. But what about for individuals who may already be homeless, who don't have a place at all? And I guess what I want to make sure is, I know it was stated that we may not need to put it in this, but I don't want us to lose sight of it, where if these agencies go away or the funding go away for these agencies, then we're not attacking the problem at all. So I don't know if we still need to put something in here to address the homeless need in the city.
Before Mark answers that question, I'm going to say, I don't think it needs to be in the plan because not a single resident brought up homelessness as a problem in their neighborhoods. Is there a problem in our community? I can't speak to that, but I don't think that these two neighborhoods have identified those as the key problems. So what we put in this plan is what the residents said were the issues that needed to be addressed. So I guess I'm not saying you can't put it in, because you can.
Right.
You're the council.
Right.
But I would caution you that that is not what the neighborhood said they needed, that was their greatest need. So anyway.
Yeah, and I see that, and it's hard for just a little pushback. It's hard for the individual who has a place to go at night to say, well, we're going to focus on homeless because I'm not there. I think it would be a little bit different if I was actually out there and attending the meeting. Then, yeah, homeless is going to be important to me. But, okay.
So within Rock County, we have what's called the Rock County Homeless Intervention Task Force. All the homeless serving or housing, all the agencies of private homeless and housing services are members of that task force and have been for several years. We conduct street outreach twice a year. We receive HUD funding, and we have tiered services so that we can provide services to people who are on the street, people who are in emergency shelter, and people who are in transitional housing to move them all to permanent supportive housing. So those services are being provided by another entity that seeks funding directly from HUD. To provide housing services and homeless services. If you're interested in doing so, if you want to understand what really goes on with our homeless populations, on the 26th of July, we have our biannual street count. So we'll be meeting at Echo at midnight in Janesville. And we'll have volunteers out until 5 a.m. Doing street outreach. We divide the county into 13 sections, and we assign volunteer groups to each of those sections to explore. Our groups have care packages, and then we also offer respite, so we'll offer housing vouchers for hotel stay temporarily, and then we start working with those individuals that we encounter to get them into first emergency shelter or transitional services. If they're veterans, to connect them with Rock Valley Community Programs. It all depends on what their needs are once we do an initial assessment, and then we work with the serving organization that does that work. So that's been going on in this community for a number of years. I personally coordinated street counts for both Rock and Walworth County for 8 years myself. So we do that street out twice a year, every July and every January, in addition to the regular outreach that we do for people who are situationally homeless and people who are chronically homeless. The agencies in this community are very well aware of who those folks are, where they are in the evenings, what services are available and what aren't, and then we do that outreach continually. Whether or not you want to include that in the plan is up to you. But there is a large institution that virtually every virtually every housing or homeless service agency is a member of, and that we work directly with a state continuum of care that works directly with HUD. So every state has a continuum of care that we are members of, that we work on housing services and have been doing so for a number of years. The Homeless Intervention Task Force meets the third Friday of each month in Janesville. Anybody's welcome to attend that meeting. And as I said, on midnight on the 26th of July, anyone's welcome to come and volunteer for the homeless count. We'll be out till about 5 a.m. Doing street outreach. So.
Okay.
Better to come this time than in January.
Yeah, I know.
And in terms of the youth programs, you're asking about partnerships. For the past 2 years, Community Actions has been already partnering with Boys and Girls Club. We're providing an 8-week summer camp program for teens. We actually have 2 sites running this summer, one for high school youth at our facility at the Eclipse Center, and then our middle school youth are being served at Boys and Girls Club now. And that program is our prep program, which is free for them.
Okay, Council Pressure.
I was hoping you could give us some insight to Kevin's question. Is the count stayed the same as the homeless counts? About what they
we've seen nationally the homeless numbers have gone up for the first time. I think last year for the first time in several years. At any given time in Rock County, you're talking about 300 to 400 homeless individuals, which is usually where we land. And that includes people in emergency shelter, transitional, because those individuals are considered homeless. They don't have permanent housing. And the street outreach that we conduct as well.
Okay. Councilor Blakely, did you have anything?
No, Mr. Perry covered it.
Okay. And I guess hearing all that and I'm seeing the work that the agencies are doing, and I like it, but I still, just part of me just says I think something needs to be in the plan to make sure that it's always in front of us to make sure that?
So if I can, I mean, the reason why it's always in front of us is whether we're working with the youth in our communities or the adults in our communities, and we're starting to see more and more issues with even our underage youth who are having housing issues. So even in the course of the other work that we're doing, housing still becomes a significant issue. So, one of the major things that's happening with our systems navigator, who's already actually working in the Hackett neighborhood, the major issue is housing. So she's working with those families to get them referred to traditional housing or emergency shelter or into permanent supportive housing programs. Housing's always at the forefront. When housing falls apart, everything else falls apart for us. So we have to make sure that our families have that stable before anything else happens.
And your consolidated plan already includes a whole section on homelessness and how we deal with homelessness.
Okay.
So you don't need to add anything because it's already in there
Okay.
for the 5-year plan and the annual plan.
Okay.
So we already have that as one of the things we have to do. HUD requires that as part of our CDBG funding to say how we're addressing homelessness. So, which is also why they apply for CDBG funding, because it's consistent with the consolidated plan. So it's already in a plan
Okay.
that you already approved.
Okay. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Councilor Blakely.
Yes, Mr. Perry, I just wanted to mention, hello again. Thank you, Julie. That if people are unable to volunteer for the street count, they could still make donations, could they not, to help with the street count and provide?
Yeah, we are always looking for care package items. There's actually a care package wish list, which is on the Homeless Intervention Task Force website. Toiletries, blankets, socks, gloves, mittens for the winter. In the summertime, rain jackets, things like that. But we're always looking for it. You can look at the list and see non-perishable food items are always needed. So we put together those care packages, take them out with us. So, because sometimes we have individuals that'll refuse other services, but they'll take our care package. So we're at least giving them something. Especially our chronically homeless population will quite often refuse the other services. But we can take the donations at Community Action. People can take them to ECHO. We take them year round. So.
Okay. Anyone else, any questions or comments? See none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So then you have 2 public hearings to open and close, one related to this NRSA plan, one that's related specifically to the 17 plan amendment and budget.
Okay, at this time, I would like to open a public hearing on item 4A. If there's anyone wishing to speak on item 4A, step forward this evening, give your name and address for the record. Second call, anyone, come on down. State your name and address, please.
Thank you.
My name is Steve Howland. I live at 1617 Emerson Street in Beloit. I also chair the Beloit Equal Opportunities Commission. I don't speak on behalf of the commission this evening, but my participation in its work informs my comments. Anyone who has seen the 88-page report that was produced in relation to this by Julie and Terry and Mark and who knows how many others, can't help but appreciate the long and hard work that took place to come to the present recommendation. Assuming it passes, I urge the City Council and City Departments to keep several things in mind, most of which I'm sure you're aware of because nearly all of them are included in the report. However, approving something is one thing, and implementing it can be much more difficult, to your point earlier. Don't let the vision become too narrow. Neighborhood revitalization must be more than upgrading housing. It needs to connect neighborhoods to resources, including education, shopping, restaurants, recreation, healthcare, and entertainment. How these are connected is important. The means of transportation, be it public, autos, or bike pedestrian paths, need to be incorporated in concert. Informing the plan with other plans like the SLATs, the State Line Area Transportation Study for bike and pedestrian paths, would be helpful. For bike and pedestrian paths, appearance is important. Clear delineation or marking that impart a sense of safety is crucial. And I believe that such paths should be incorporated to the schools in these neighborhoods. Partnering with the school district is essential. Bike and pedestrian paths linking neighborhoods to schools would help build community, and partnering with the local school to create new adult education opportunities which could supplement current offerings not offered locally would further strengthen the targeted areas. An area of inequality not mentioned in the report is the disparity in wealth. Nationally, a white family has 13 times more wealth than a black family. That difference has dramatic impact when adversity occurs. Wealth, accumulated assets, is a safety net that enables some families to successfully negotiate the loss of a job or large medical bills, while another family is crushed by the burden and stress they experience. Also, figuring out how to recruit, train, and involve volunteers, especially from the targeted neighborhoods, will be important. Don't stop partnering with the many entities that gave input into this report, but go beyond to seek ways to engage the many who still feel their voices aren't heard. Also, please continue in your efforts to engage the business community in these efforts. Helping business owners and landlords understand how they can tap into the benefits of Beloit's diversity and be partners in encouraging and celebrating diversity would go a long way to strengthening Beloit's wider image. One last comment, just the discussion that you had earlier with Julie and with Mark indicates a clear need for the navigator position. And how do we navigate this? Most of us have no clue as to where to start and how to deal with the processes that put people in touch with the resources of the city or the county or federal resources. So for your consideration, I encourage you, go forth, watch over things. And I hope to work with you in terms of fine-tuning and raising awareness of issues that might not otherwise come up for action and implementation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Second call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4A, please come step forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name's Matt Finnegan. I live at 2212 Knoll View Drive in Beloit, and I'm with Homes Through Financial Freedom, and I just wanted to say I'm really excited about this opportunity that the city is moving forward. I was an intern 30 years ago with Neighborhood Housing Service. I've been working in housing for 30 plus years in the Beloit area. Currently we have one of the things I'm most involved with is our mission, which is to stabilize families, neighborhoods, and the community through home ownership and financial literacy. And we've been doing that. We've got over 200 homes being bought through our corporation, 80 of which are in approximately 40 in each of these two neighborhoods. So any increase in home ownership is going to be very vital. It does stabilize it, and we use financial literacy techniques, namely the Dave Ramsey course, to help people navigate and build some wealth and to be prepared for the downfalls that always happen in life. So I also appreciate all the work that goes into this stuff. I remember putting together maps when I was an intern at Beloit College, putting together the maps, identifying rental and owner occupied and all that. It's a lot of work, and I know anytime you're dealing with the government, anytime you deal with them, they want everything laid right out. So I'm really pretty excited about this, and I'm really hope you guys pass this. Thanks.
Thank you. Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4A, please step forward this evening. Seeing none, I would like to close the public hearing on item 4A, move to the public hearing on item 4B. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4B, please step forward. Second call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4B, please step forward. Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4B, please step forward. Seeing none, I would like to close the public hearing on item 4B, move to item 5, please.
Public comments.
Thank you. At this time, I'll give a couple minutes for the other councilors to come in. This is the time on the agenda where public may come forward and speak on any items that are not listed on the agenda. We will give you 3 minutes. We do ask you to refrain from personal attacks on staff, counselors. If that happens, we will end your presentation. I do have a couple people who filled out forms that I will be calling on, but if this is also the time, if you were not able to fill out a form and would like to speak, this is your opportunity to speak under public comments. The first individual that I have a form for is Kurt Brennan. Please step forward, state your name and address for the records.
My name's Kurt Brannon. I live at 2108 East Ridge in Beloit, Wisconsin. And I'm here today to ask for approval on a review of the landscape at the Turtle Tap on 1344 East Grand.
Okay.
And I gave you quite a lot of pictures here, and there's a reason for that, just so that maybe the council can more clearly understand the reason why the steel siding is so important to me. And I didn't just simply replace it with something other than the steel siding. It's a lot more than economical, but it's going to be more appealing, and it correlates with the rest of my building. If I could go ahead and put steel siding up. It will also, the existing shed and building on the corner are steel siding, and it will correlate with that. And of course, you got 40 years, it's going to look nice. People drive by, it's not going to fade. There's no seams, there's no painting. It's always going to look nice. I could run the full length of the building, and we'll get into that when we briefly go over the pictures. I apologize for having so many, but I think it's kind of important for you to see what's going on here. Anyways, looking here at the pictures, you can see where I removed the steel siding, not knowing that steel siding couldn't go back up once you took it down. But it still needed to be done. It had been pieced together over the years. It wasn't watertight. There had been a door there previously, windows that had been removed, and it was all steel siding, but it was just pieced together, and it looked terrible. This is actually an area is only visible to softball players or somebody driving through the parking lot. You can't see it just driving by and going by the front of the building. Not all the building is steel siding, but it's important to me that the back is, just for my architectural ideas moving forward with any maybe more beneficiary improvements to my building. If we go forward here on the second picture here, you can see where I put the fence around the trash receptacles, and like you say, much of this isn't where you can drive by and see from the front of the building. And I gave you an image of the sheds just simply because that's the type of steel siding I plan on using. That's on page 3, and that's actually the color that I'm going to change it to too. And it'll have everything will have dark brown trim around it. It'll really pop the building, and it'll correlate with the rest of the building. I use a different material. It's going to look terrible, trust me. That's on number 4, that's my softball part, showing the shed and the colors that I use. I know this ain't about colors, but I think it's important for us to see where I'm going with the siding and what color that would be. And looking on page 5, just another image here of what's going on here with the shed and in correlation with the building and how it's going to appear from that angle when you take a visual. I also want the council to know the entire building is not steel siding. 2 of the sides are mostly brick. The smoke garden side is mostly brick, and the drive-up window side is mostly brick. If you look at the peak here on image 6, the peak, now that's steel siding. And if you go around to the back of the building where I plan to replace it with steel siding, if I use something else, it's not going to correlate with the rest of the building. It's just not going to look well. And in the corners, from going from tan into transition to brown, the corners will be dark brown, and that will help with that transition. And I just, if the council would see it to go ahead and approve this for me, I would really appreciate it. That goes without saying. And if it's not improved, I don't know what I'm going to do to make that building look good. There's always other solutions, but I don't think anything else is going to look well at all. Okay. And that being said, I hope you guys can help me out with getting this done the way I'd like to see it, and so that the architectural view of that building is actually going to be improved and not diminished by using a different type of material that this building doesn't have already. So that being said, any questions?
Okay, thank you. Well, it's coming up later, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
No
Yep,
problem.
Thank you.
Next one is Joe Stottleman.
Good evening.
Good evening. Please state your name and address for the record, and I believe he passed out a packet of information
I
to
did.
everyone. So-
Joe Stottleman, 2431 East Ridge Road, Beloit, and I am here as a representative of Angus Young Associates and Palermo's Enterprises, and the owner of Palermo's is with me as well, Peter Gabriel. So we're here to answer any of your questions, and I'll just run through the packet quick. This packet is in response to our presentation to the ABLCC last week. And we just want to show you what our plans are. We know that the license at this location at 648 4th Street has been in limbo, waiting for some development with the site. And we are here today to commit to redeveloping the site in the next 90 days with the approval of the license tonight. And you can see that on page 2 is an image that was actually created by the Main Street program for the development of 648 4th Street, showing, and most of that work has been done already on the exterior. But the interior is completely gutted and needs to be redone. The next image is the actual corner lot on the corner of St. Lawrence and 4th Street, showing a new outdoor patio and garden area. And that will be a part of the development, although that's not a part of the 648 property. It's a separate property. And again, the other image, the next image is the interior of the site. And then the fifth image is, this image is the floor plan showing the use of this building will be a private event space, meaning that you can rent this for weddings, for conferences, large meeting events up to 100 people. And then last thing to really show you is the project schedule, showing we have submitted drawings as of 15 minutes ago to Julie for the plan review for the interior renovation of the project. We were working on the site plan review, site plan submittal as well, all expected to be done by Halloween of this year. The last 2 pages are just related to this development, and one of the reasons why this has taken us some time to get to this point is a lot of moving parts, and there was some consideration of moving the existing Palermo's Pizza business into this property. We have since decided not to do that. That will remain at the location it's at today, and we will be proposing a new addition there to enhance the functions of that property as well, and maintain this strictly as an event space.
Okay.
So with that, I'm here to answer any questions and help you move along.
Okay, so, and with that, I think it's coming up on the agenda a little bit later on, so I think if councils have time, if have questions at that time, we'll pose them at that time.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak under public comments this evening? Second call, anyone wishing to speak under public comments this evening? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak under public comments this evening? Seeing none, I would like to close the public comment at this time and move to item 6 on the agenda, which is the consent agenda.
All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point on the agenda.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to remove any item from the consent agenda? Councilor DeForest.
Mr. President, I'd like to request that item 6C, as in cat, be removed, please.
6C be removed. Anyone seeing any other item that needs to be removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda will consist of items 6A, 6B, 6D, E, F, and G. Is there a motion to approve that portion of the consent agenda? Moved by DeForest and second by Dunkin. All in favor of approving that portion of the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that portion passes. Now we move to item 6C.
Item 6C is a resolution authorizing an exception to an architectural review and landscape code for the property located at 1344 East Grand Avenue.
Mrs. Christensen, please.
On June 1st of this year, staff reviewed an architecture review application for this project. and approve the replacement of second-story windows, window trim, and soffits. However, we did not approve the proposed metal siding because 34.151 of the Architecture Review and Landscape Code limits the placement of metal materials to no more than 25% of the exterior wall surface on non-industrial buildings. As you heard earlier, he's proposing to install brown vertical steel siding on the 3 rear exterior walls of the building. There was a variety of photos in the report, and I understand you got some more tonight. Section 34.225 of the Architecture Review and Landscape Code states that the City Council may grant exceptions to the regulations contained in this chapter when such exceptions are in harmony with the general purpose and intent of this chapter, when they find that city special circumstances exist involving the size, shape, topography, location, or surroundings of the property referred to in the application, which we don't feel there's any special circumstances, that denial of the exception will cause unreasonable or unnecessary hardship. Because there are alternative siding materials, we do not believe there's an unnecessary hardship. And granting the exception will not cause substantial injury to the value of other property in the vicinity, nor be detrimental to the general welfare of the neighborhood or the public. We feel that granting the exception could have a negative impact on property values in the vicinity and will set a bad precedent citywide, allowing metal siding elsewhere. This would be the first architectural review exception allowed for metal siding on a permanent commercial building since the code was adopted in 2004. Plan Commission met on this the last meeting, and they did on July 5th. And they made a motion for approval of the exception, and it failed by unanimous vote of 0-6. So Plan Commission is recommending denial of this request. The resolution is written in the affirmative, as your resolutions typically are, but Plan Commission did unanimously recommend against granting the exception.
Okay.
Questions for me?
Okay, is there, once again, the resolution is in the affirmative, so voting yes would give him permission to use the metal siding. Voting no would say he could not use the metal siding. So with that, before we start a discussion, let's have a motion and a second, at least to get it on the floor for discussion. Is there a motion for approval? Motion by Dunkin. Is there a second? Second by Anderson. Any councilor questions or comments? Councilor Blakely, please.
Yes, I think that Mr. Bronin, you made some very good points in your presentation earlier during public comments. It concerns me about allowing such a major exception within our city. I do think because of the comments you made, though, if this was not true, I would be completely on your side in this matter. I wonder if you have given any consideration to altering your plans somewhat and perhaps pulling back to applying the steel siding on only 1/4 of your building, perhaps the face, perhaps the largest part that faces the ballpark, for instance, in photo number 5. Mm-hmm. I wonder if you have given that any thought so that you could come under current ordinances and planning rules for the city.
That is the only area I plan to put steel siding on. The rest of the building's going to remain as is. So I guess if you look at the entire building, we're probably looking at about 50-50, 50% being brick and 50% being steel.
And I want to interrupt you for a second to make sure that I'm understanding your planning as it exists right now. Because when I look at picture number 5, I see 2 roof lines, and I see one large face here. There's an additional face here that right now only has the temporary covering on it.
Yes, that's
what I'm suggesting to you is that you consider pulling back on your planning, taking it all the way down to that 25%. So you might be able to go ahead and experience the long-lasting durability of the steel siding, for instance, but come under city laws so that, try to find a compromise with the city is what I'm suggesting to you.
Sure. I did come up with some vinyl ideas just simply on the peaks where they use a teardrop vinyls, and I could use that to maybe accent the brown trim and maybe make the building pop a little bit more. I did bring that up, and I also was willing to do the lower end, going up maybe 4 feet and using a different type of material. I didn't specify what type it would be. I think it's called like R111. It's like a board. It's a wood board, and I could make that color different and then cut it off. But it wouldn't look as nice as just the steel siding. It simply wouldn't. It would just be trying to get under that cold. But I want the council to know too that all the properties surrounding this building are owned by myself. So as far as bringing property value down, it's the homes next to that, they're mine. The ballpark next to it, it's mine. The storage building there, it belongs to me. The only thing that don't belong to me there is the fire lane. That belongs to the city, of course. But everything else belongs to me. And if the property value goes down, that's going to hurt myself. And trust me, I do not plan on doing that. I want my property value to go up. There would be no reason for me to purposely try to bring the property value down. And I do think that using a different material other than what correlates with the rest of the building might actually bring my property value down if I can't use it.
Okay. Any other questions, Councilor Blakely? Seeing none, Councilor Forback and then Councilor DeForest.
Well, I just wanted to comment that I believe what we're struggling with here is the issue that if we make an exception for this, then I'm new to this, but the city staff really feels that that's going to hamper future issues with people wanting to use steel. I don't think that most of us have any thought, really, that it's going to depress your property values, because you do own everything there. And I have to compliment you.
Thank you.
Your building's been around for a long time, and I'm glad you're keeping it up. So I'm really struggling with my vote because the staff knows better than I do. I just thought that the city council could have some exceptions sometimes, to what is the rule.
I ask the council too to keep in mind that it's not in the city area. As far as downtown Beloit, you only have the facial profiles on there, and them are easily done with brick and other things because they're just dealing with the front of the building. Because I have several sides on my building, it becomes more complicated to use these fancy brickworks and vinyl buckles over a long distance. They always buckle, it overheats. It's not a good product. And of course, if we spackled it, there's painting issues. It fades, it cracks, and steel is just a wonderful product. And I just wish we didn't have that in our city codes. I'm not quite sure why it's there. I've had this in mind during travels, and some of the steel buildings I went by were some of the nicer buildings I've seen, and they really look nice with the different colors being used. I'm not sure why that code is even existing, but I wouldn't want to go through the city of Beloit, though I do understand that downtown and see a bunch of steel buildings. That wouldn't look so nice, but I'm not downtown.
Okay, Councilor DeForest.
Thank you. I wanted to clarify that I worked for a number of different cities in a number of different jurisdictions, and qualifications in your architectural review code are very common in well-planned urban locations. And I think that the city's requirement to prohibit the use of that material outside of industrial areas is pretty consistent with those practices. I would also just remind the council and our applicant that there are 4 existing exceptions that can be considered. Staff did point those out in the staff report, A through D, and it would have to be the determination of the council that one of those 4 exceptions apply in this case uniquely outside of any other area for equity purposes in making decisions moving forward. So just wanted to point out those issues. I have also visited communities that do not have architectural design guidelines, and they have a variety of other very problematic issues. And so I can appreciate the difficulty that this may place, but the purpose of having those rules is to try and create some equity citywide, and that the intention is to be sure that we are protecting property values on a whole.
Thank you. Councilor DeForest, did you have anything? Attorney, yeah.
Yes, thank you. That underscores what I was going to comment about. It appears to me that your request does not meet one of the 4 exceptions that are outlined in our ordinance. And your argument that it would look better is not a strong enough argument for making the exception. That's a matter of opinion. It's a matter of aesthetic opinion. I personally don't think that vertical metal siding that's designed for agricultural buildings, making it look like a barn, is an aesthetically pleasing surface for a clearly commercial building very close to our downtown district. I disagree with you on the aesthetic value of that. I don't think that's pleasing to look at all. And this ordinance is specifically designed to kind of avoid this arguing about what we think one owner might think looks aesthetically pleasing versus what the consistency is across the city. So I do think you can find some alternative materials that will look just as beautiful covering your building, and so, you know, and like I said, I don't see anything that you've made a case for that meets one of these 4 exceptions, and sticking with the statute that's here. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Prescia?
I was just going to say something very similar to that, but the fact that it's such a large area being covered, and it's such a tall, large area, so prominent, you know, it's just kind of pushing the boundaries. And then once you do this, who's to say 5 years from now, somebody doesn't say, I want to do the rest of the building to look like this, because it'll all look more aesthetically pleasing, because it'll all be the same then. And I just don't think that's the whole point of this, is to avoid this in the future and avoid setting a precedent that somehow says this is okay. So I'm thinking there's plenty of alternative ways to do this, and I don't think that they would all be cost prohibitive. I'm looking at going, why isn't that clapboard, and why aren't there more windows? But anyway, that's, you know, my aesthetics. Anyway, and that's why we have those rules. So anyway, that's just what I would like to say. And, you know, it's nothing against, it's not personal. It's just the things we have to do as city councilors. It's not always pleasant, and it's not always the best thing. You know, it's not always the thing we want, but it's the thing that our community needs. So that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you. Any other councilor have any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, there is a motion and a second on the floor. Remember, voting in the affirmative gives the applicant permission to use the metal siding. Voting against it.
I'm sorry, point of order.
Point of order, question?
Could you explain that further? I thought that
It's the resolution is listed in the affirmative, which means that we vote in favor of the resolution, we're allowing the applicant to utilize the metal siding.
Okay.
Voting against the resolution, voting no, would mean that he cannot use the metal siding for his building.
Thank you.
Is everyone clear? There's a motion and there's a second on the floor. All those in favor of approving the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
All those against the resolution, say nay. Nay. Motion fails.
Motion fails.
Fails on a vote of
6-1.
6-1. Thank you. Thank you. Item 7, please.
Item 7A is a consideration of a Class B beer and Class B liquor license for Palermo Enterprise LLC located at 648 4th Street. Olsey Eckleberry, agent.
Madam Clerk.
Okay. What you have here is a little background. On November 15th of 2016, the City Council approved a Class B fermented beverage and Class B intoxicating liquor combination license for Palermo Enterprises. Due to construction activities on the property, the business operations have not begun. Moving forward, you're under our current liquor laws, you have 6 months from the time that the council grants it to use it. So on July 12, 2016, Palermo Enterprise was brought before the ABLCC for a status update on the construction activities due to the license not having been used for over 6 months. They were granted a 4-month extension, which expired on November 8, 2016. And the minutes of the meetings were attached in your packet. Moving forward, on December 13, 2016, Palermo Enterprise LLC was brought before the ABLCC for an update as to why business had not opened. And Mr. Gabriel appeared before the ABLCC and indicated that he was assisting in the operations of a friend's business due to his passing and that his plans for construction of the licensed premise were delayed. He indicated that he was meeting with contractors after the first of the year and expected progress to go fairly quickly. So they approved another 6-month extension that was due to expire June 19, 2017. So currently, on July 11th, last week, Palermo Enterprise LLC was brought before the ABLCC for an update as to why the business had not opened. Mr. Gabriel appeared before the ABLCC and indicated that his plans for the business were evolving and that he had new plans for the construction of the business on that property. Mr. Gabriel requested another 6-month extension. Vice Chair Tinder made a motion to grant the company's request for an extension. However, the motion failed for the lack of a second. Therefore, the ABLCC has no recommendation for the City Council this evening. Whatever decision the City Council makes, city staff request a condition of any decision to include that Palermo Enterprise provide an as-built site plan that provides the final description of the licensed premise for consideration and approval by the ABLCC and the City Council. Due to the delay and change in the layout of the business and the lack of a description on the most recent license renewal application, the originally approved application no longer appears to have an accurate premise description, and so that would also need to come before the ABLCC and the City Council for approval.
Thank you. We've heard the presentation. Is there a motion?
I'll move. I'll second.
Motion by Blakely, second by Duncan. Any councilor comments, questions? Councilor DeForest.
Thank you. Can I ask a question of Mr. Gabriel, please,
Sure.
since he's here? Could you come to the podium, please?
Hello.
Hello.
State your name and
you.
address for the
Peter
record,
Gabriel,
please. Thank you.
81 Riverside Drive.
Thank you. I really want this to work, but I don't know if you remember the last time that you were here asking for an extension, I asked you to really convince me and give me a compelling argument for your plans to really move forward with this development. And so I'm a little concerned because this is another extension that you're asking for. So can you help convince me that this is definitely going to happen this time?
We've simplified the plan. And I don't know if you see it. The previous site plan showed a kitchen. So what we've done is made it much simpler.
Okay.
It's going to move. It is going to move forward, and it will be done.
All right. So you've simplified your plans.
We have, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Councilor Pressure.
I just wanted to ask about the timeline you presented tonight. Now and I wanted to ask Lori about that too. There will be something to come before the applicant and us for approval later on after this, if this extension is granted?
They will need to amend their current application to reflect a current premise description.
So we'll have this will come before us again before the approval? Is that clear to me?
No, that is correct. And I also, when going through the documents for the Alcohol Commission meeting, we may have some issues with the entity that's holding the license, and I want to make sure that we have all the correct information for the license applicant and then the ownership of the property and how because this was supposed to be just 648, and you're showing plans for 658 as well. So I think that's where some of the confusion lies, and where
That hasn't changed. It is at 648. We wanted to show the entire property because I own both properties.
Okay, so we'll just if the council grants the request, the resolution just clarifies that they come back to the January Alcohol Commission meeting and then back to the second meeting in January, so that we can make sure that everybody's on the same page so that the license is accurate.
Accurate description, okay. That was my question, thank you.
Any other questions or comments, Councilor DeForest?
I do have one other question for Ms. Stotler, mostly for the benefit of the other information for the counselors that are new. Is this license in demand, by other businesses? Are we keeping this license from another business who could be using it at this time?
I've recently developed a quota list for the ABLCC, and I present that every month so that they understand. We're allowed 42 regular liquor licenses in the city of Beloit. We also are allowed 11 reserve licenses, of which Mr. Gabriel's business has one of each at this point. For the Class B beer and intoxicating liquor, there are other liquor licenses throughout the city, your Class A's and such, that don't have quotas, but the ones that are enforced for quotas are 42 regular liquor licenses and 11 reserve licenses. We currently have 2 of our reserve licenses available, and they have been available for about a year. At the end of June 30th, when all the licenses expired, the Super 8 and the End Zone did not renew their licenses. Those regular licenses became available, and July 3rd, which was the first Monday available, when I came into the office, there were 2 applicants standing there with paperwork ready to get in. So you will have 2, in August 7th, you will have 2 regular license applications coming to you for referral to the August Liquor Commission, and then at that point, if nobody else has applied, I would still have those 2 reserved. So I can't really speak to who's in demand. I can just tell you what's in my office.
So just to be clear, we have the 2 reserves available, and so by granting this license, we're not withholding an opportunity from another business who desires a Class B because the 2 reserves are available. Is that correct?
And just to be, full disclosure, your regular liquor licenses cost you $600 a year. Your reserve licenses cost you a one-time expense of $10,000 that is not refundable by law. So you do $10,000 to get the license, and then you renew it for $600 every year. So there is a little bit of a difference between.
Right.
That prompts me I have to ask. The license we're discussing.
Are you done, Councilor?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Is the license we're discussing here a reserve license?
No, this is a regular liquor license that he's holding at this point, that he was granted.
Well, and it seems.
Councilor Forback.
Thank you. It seems to me that, look at this plan, it's all here. So if we have, this is going to be a business. I can't imagine that we'd be hesitating to give this license.
And I guess it's just, if I may address that, because I think that's where Councilor DeForest is going, and I think what the hesitancy is that it's been a couple times that he's been back for an extension. So I think that's where Councilor DeForest and others may have that concern in saying, okay, how many times, because it is a valuable license.
Sure.
So we're just, councilors may be wondering, we don't want anyone to just hold it hostage, just in case we have anybody else that may want it, and we have a particular business that's holding it hostage and keep asking for extensions. So that's the hesitancy on the parts of God. I agree that it's a wonderful business, and looking at, and I guess when I look at it, and the Alcohol Commission has no recommendation, and taking a little time to think about it over the weekend, and I always look at the businesses, the individual, and where we're up against, and looking at what Peter has done in the downtown business area, that with his business, all the business that he's owned, and he's moving forward and making changes on a constant basis. There's no doubt in my mind that this is not going to happen. I think in everybody's life we have life circumstances, and so what? I shouldn't say so what, but it just so happens that it was in a time that he's already had one extension. But I think in everybody's life we have circumstances that we can't control, and I don't see Peter as an individual that says, I'm going to hold on to this license and just get to the project when I feel like getting to him, and have that attitude that, oh, well, I'll do it when I get ready to. I'll just keep applying for an extension, and they'll keep doing it. I think he understands the seriousness of it, that, you know what, hey, if I don't have to go down there one more time and have an extension, I wouldn't do it. But I think I've seen the work that he's done in the downtown business area, and the work that he continues to do. And I've never seen him as an individual that starts a project and say, well, yeah, it'll sit there for 5 or 10 years. So then in my next stage, I call the executive, I call Shauna and I go, okay, Shauna, what's going on, you know? And so her and I have a conversation and, okay, well, is this going to be beneficial for the Downtown Association? Do you have a problem with it? Because I like to gather all my thoughts. But I don't see where this is an individual who's just holding on to the license and not going to finish this project. I think it's just happens that life circumstances got in the way of him moving forward, and I'm encouraged that he's had the timeline here, say here's what we're going to do, here's when we're going to do it, and I know that as Councilor DeForest is saying, I'm leaving, I'm going to California, I can guarantee you that there's others down here that's going to be holding his feet to the fire, because I don't think she's going to lose anybody's number by saying, you know what, hey, by the way. But I truly believe, and I just want to say that with Peter being here, the work that he's done downtown, and with Shauna, that I don't think this is the individual that just is going to say, well, I'll get to it when I get to it. So I'm not really that concerned about it. Councilor DeForest.
Thank you. Peter, I do appreciate your investment in the city and the downtown, your contribution. I just want to make sure the existing council understands the history of this and understands what's at stake, that there are implications for you holding on to this license. It's been years, it has been, and it's not fair to other businesses. So I'll be voting for this tonight, but I just want to make sure the council understands and hears this, because they're fairly new, that we don't want you to keep coming back here again and again and again, holding on to a license that really other businesses could benefit from. So I just want to make sure that you do understand the impact of that.
I do.
Thank you.
And Councilor Forbeck, have anything else, or Councilor Presho?
I just wanted to echo what Sheila said. I understand the value of this license, and Lori does too, because she hears about it. And so it's important we get this accomplished, and I don't doubt you can do that. And I really look forward to seeing some improvements on 4th and St. Lawrence there, and along with Diane's stuff across the street. So I think it'll all look good. The end zone is gone, thank goodness, and we can move on. And you've got your opportunity sitting there. So I expect you to take care of it. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to support this too. So thank you.
Vice President Duncan.
I just want to say I have faith in Peter. I feel that he'll move forward, and I just want to thank you for what you have done for the downtown with Domenico's, and also with what you're looking forward to doing in the future with the renovation on 4th Street. So I have faith in you.
Any other counselor? Okay, Councilor Blakely.
Just commenting, Peter. Glad to see you here. Great idea. Beautiful looking plans. All very good. And thanks again for all your contributions to the city and the business atmosphere here in town. And I will plan on coming to the grand opening in about 95 days from now.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other counselor comments?
Expect me from California. I'll expect it.
Any other counselor comments, concerns, or questions? Hearing none, there is a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor of approving the extension, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. Item 8.
Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you. Item 8, ordinances, there are none?
There are none.
Item 9.
Under appointments this evening, there is only one. It's to the Equal Opportunities Commission. It's Don Gross, 315 West Grand, replacing Joe Hansen to a term ending June 30th, 2020.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion by Duncan, is there a second? Second by Blakely. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor of that approval, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Item 10, council activities and upcoming events. Councilor Forback.
Well,
you're on.
I just want to say that, of course, I attended, again, our great farmers market. I was just mentioning, actually, with Andrew Yankee today, how fabulous it is to have seen it grow and be so superbly excellent. And then also, I think I've talked before about areas of excellence in Beloit, and my husband and I participated with one of those areas of excellence on Friday. We purchased Otha's ribs. And
that guy.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess that's most of what I did.
She's been kind of food focused.
Yes, I sure am.
Councilor Presho.
Well, coming up on the 4th is the annual DBA Street Dance, and that's a huge event. Usually 2,000 to 3,000 people out there on State Street. 2 bands. It should be very good. I'll be working. I won't be attending, but I'll be working there anyway. And then tomorrow night, there's cameras at the Confluence, it's just south of us a few blocks, where we'll have some photographers and hopefully some people interested in photography gathering there to work on some ideas for photography. And then also tomorrow night at Kruger Golf Course at 6 o'clock, there is a public meeting to go over two playground choices for Kruger Playground up on top. So the Kruger Clubhouse, meeting will be at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you. Actually, just last night, I came back from a Young Elected Officials Conference in San Francisco. I was incredibly impressed by seeing the wide range of people from different backgrounds. Much like this council, it was a diverse group. We had a lot of people from different religions, sexual orientations, and racial backgrounds. We also, congratulations, Wisconsin, we had one of the most represented groups at this Young Elected Officials Conference. We had 10 of us out of 150, so we did incredibly well. I found out, too, that a lot of the cities have the same issues as us, so I guess that doesn't make us as special. You know, every local government's strapped to get cash. You know, we have that issue, and, you know, obviously the opioid epidemic is one thing that a lot of us spent a couple days talking about, so, you know, looking to stay in contact with them and maybe see if they have any solutions, too, and maybe seeing if we can try to, you know, copy some of them because, you know, we don't have to be innovative if somebody else has already done something successful. Coming up on Monday, we'll have a courageous conversation. I believe, Sheila, you'll be on that panel too. It's Monday at Community Action at 5:30. It's on diversity. I strongly suggest anyone that is available to attend. I think it'll be a great discussion and I think a much needed one in this city. So if you have some time on Monday, please show up. It'll be great to see everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Blakely.
Thanks. I got to see more of the city and learn more about it and commune with both our police chief, David Zabalski, and our fire chief, Brad Liggett. I rode out with Chief Zabalski on July 4th, the night of. It's no way to enjoy the fireworks going out with the police. I was really amazed by how thorough he was, how thorough they were. I got to visit the operations center up by ABC Supply, and I got to see the chief in action, how he would stop to talk to people in a neighborhood or down behind the high school, for instance, and persuade them very quickly, firmly, but in a friendly manner, you know, to tone it down. To get the fireworks out of the streets, for instance. I saw him befriending little kids, like this little guy named Dylan from Denver. His aunt apologized for him not being as friendly as he might have been at first because he was from Denver, and they're not as friendly there as they are in Beloit, Wisconsin. Having grown up in Colorado, I can attest to the fact that Beloit is much friendlier. So it was a good evening. And then I had a chance recently to sit in on the Wisconsin Emergency Management training for Beloit people regarding the Emergency Operations Center. And Chief Liggett was kind enough to sit with me and help explain the basic ins and outs of it, so I wasn't left too far behind. I just heard from Clint, and Sheila may be mentioning it too, about the diversity meeting next Monday evening. Did you say at 5:30?
Yes.
In Community Action. That sounds very worthwhile.
Councilor DeForest.
Thank you. Here. Well, among the many things that I've already listed that I'll be missing about Beloit, now I have to add Otha's Ribs to the list. I hadn't thought about that. A lot of really beautiful people in Beloit I'll be missing. I did enjoy my very last parks tour, and it was very fun to check out the new playground equipment, the new benches, and we had a slide race, and I think Regina won.
Okay, wait a minute. Wait. Okay, now let me just add. Let me add. I just have. You said Regina won, and looking at the pictures from the tour, everyone had on blue jeans and tennis shoes and shorts. She had on high heel shoes and she in a dress. And you guys let her reach on the slide. I'm just saying.
It was the high heels that did it.
I was just curious, you know.
They got over the finish line first.
Okay, hey, okay. Well, I digress. I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
that's all right. I think my hips had a hard time getting down that slide, to tell you honestly what happened. It was a joy to go visit the parks, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank our park staff for the incredible job. Our parks look beautiful. We have a lot to be proud of, and it's been my honor and privilege to serve on the Parks Commission for many years and be a part of it and advocate for swings. Hooray! That was one of my edicts, that I don't want to see another playground equipment set go out without swings, period. And because all kids love swings and those little things. That's how I made a difference, right? I got swings in the playgrounds. So I really appreciate that, and really want to underscore what Mark had just shared. I want to make sure that the public heard that the neighborhood gets to have a say in what that playground equipment looks like. So tomorrow at 6 p.m., go to the golf course clubhouse, and they'll show you some plans of playground equipment that we're looking at, and you get to weigh in and pick which playground equipment. So we really want you to have a say. Please bring your kids and have them take a look and see what they think they'd like to play with. So I went and ate at the Beloit Public Library Blender Cafe today, and Nick was here. I don't know if he stepped out already, but please go to the Blender Cafe and check it out. So I did have lunch there today, some beautiful pastries, and so the cafe is open for business, and I'm going to eat there as much as I can before I leave. Also, I wanted to share with the community that July 18th, there will be overdose prevention training at 6 p.m. at the Janesville Fire Station, the Central Fire Station. I think it's really important for us as public officials to recognize a very real problem that our community is facing, that our emergency response providers are dealing with on a regular basis. This is a serious issue. We have to get on top of it, and I think it's important for us as elected officials to recognize it, to call it out, and to try to be a part of the solution. So I will be attending the overdose prevention training that is open to any person in the public that wants to attend. It's at 6 p.m., Janesville Central Fire Station. I have begged Sherry Faber to please do one in Beloit. She's promised me with the constant persistence that we will have a prevention training session here in Beloit. So I will let you know if that happens before I leave, and if not, I'll still find some kind of way to pass it on to one of you all to be there. If you'd like to attend the one on the 18th, you can contact Sherry Faber at Janesville Mobilizing for Change, and I look forward to seeing you there. And finally, just want to ask you to save the date. August 17th is my going away party at the Rotary River Center, and I really do want it to be a fun last shindig for the whole community, a big public event. August 17th at Rotary from 5 to 7. Goodbyes are really important to me. I was abandoned by my mother, and so goodbyes are very difficult for me. And so this is a really important closure. I need to have this goodbye, at least for a little while. Beloit will always be my home. It is my claimed home, and I'm sure I'll be back. I don't know if it'll be 15 years, 20 years, but in the meantime, I'll be doing a lot of rock climbing and surfing and exploring and traveling, but Beloit's home, so I'll be back. So please come say goodbye to me, August 17th. Thank you.
Thank you. We were going to wait it really to the last meeting, Sherry, but if you want to do it now, we go right ahead. That's it.
Come on, everybody.
Oh my God, I'm losing control here. I'm losing.
Oh, excuse me.
It's okay. I'll tell you.
As I turn purple.
Vice President Dunkin.
I
don't know how you follow with that, but you're gonna go ahead and try, right?
Okay. Yeah. I had a couple things. First, I had an opportunity to join my colleagues on a tour of our parks in Beloit. I was impressed with how many changes have taken place and how beautiful they look. I learned a lot about our parks, about nature preservation, and saw some of our new bike paths and playground equipment. And some of us younger people did go down the slide. And won. Also, I am very grateful to our Department of Public Works staff for their hard work, and am looking forward to the future projects coming forward. And I also had a chance to go to the farmer's market. If you haven't been there, you have got to check it out. There are so many vendors, so many performers, all kind of things going on. And the Beloit International Film Festival, Summer Blockbuster, all that took place on Saturday. Special thanks to Visit Beloit. Shauna was here a minute ago, the City of Beloit staff, the Beloit International Film Festival, the Hendricks Commercial Properties, and the Downtown Beloit Association for helping to make those events such a success. I had a really good time, but there was one thing that I noticed while I was down there. I just felt it could have been better attended, and so I would like to encourage the community to please take advantage of that. So often you hear that there's nothing to do in Beloit. There are a lot of fun things to do, so I just wish the community would really come on out and support that. Not only the adults, but there were a lot of things for children. There was a Star Wars movie that was playing, and it was just wonderful. So if you missed it, you missed a treat. So hopefully you'll be encouraged. You'll come out, and you can look on our City of Beloit website or the Visit Beloit website just to check out what's happening in the city. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have nothing this evening after all. Everyone else got started. So, so moving on to item 11, City Manager's presentation. I don't believe we have one this evening. Item 12.
12A is a resolution waiving right of first refusal for 2750 Kennedy Drive.
Attorney Krieger.
The city was recently approached about the potential sale of 2750 Kennedy Drive. The city, by virtue of its declaration and restrictive covenants, has a repurchase right related to that property. The city has no interest in exercising those rights and wishes to consent to the transfer of the property from DM Manufacturing, Inc. to DM4GK Beloit, LLC. We have done a few of these in the last several months just on the sheer volume of property that's changing hands and the concerns about those declarations from 1971. The city and the business owners are in the process of looking at removing some of the language that's restrictive to the sale and conveyance of some of these properties from either parent companies to subsidiaries. So we'll be looking at that sometime in the future. With that, though, I will. You do have a copy of the waiver and release in your packet, and I will certainly answer any questions that anyone has related to the item.
Thank you for the presentation. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Motion by Forbeck. Is there a second? Second by Anderson. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. 12B.
The City Council will adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statutes 1985, Sub 1, Sub G, for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to the litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. And just for the public's information, the City Council may reconvene in open session after this and possibly take action on the matter.
Is there a motion to go into closed session? Motion by Preschel, second by Dunkin. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we are in closed session. Thank you. Okay, we are back.
We need a motion, right? We didn't vote to come back into open.
So moved. Thank you. Second. All in favor? Coming out. Those that say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Preschel and Dunkin. To the general public, we are assembling back into open session to act on the matter as we talked about in open session. So we will turn it over to Attorney Krieger at this time.
Thank you. The 2016 assessment for Staples on 3140 Colley Road was objected to by the taxpayer. Their assessed value in 2016 was just over $27 million. They did file the objection with the 2016 Board of Review and did get the waiver to the Circuit Court. Staples then did file a lawsuit against the city. And the city has been involved in those negotiation discussions since last summer. The city and Staples have agreed to an assessed value of $15.5 million for the 2016 tax year, and for the 2017 tax year, the city assessor will appear before the Board of Review requesting no more than $14 million for the 2017 value. The agreement, settlement agreement is before you, and we would ask that the city pass a resolution that approves a value of $15 million for 2016 and $14 million for 2017.
I so move.
There's a motion by Forbeck. Is there a second? Second by DeForest. Any councilor comments, questions, or concerns?
Didn't you say 15 and a half?
I'm sorry, 15.5 million for the 2016.
Let's make that,
Make that correction, so you have that, okay. So there's a motion and a second. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes 7-0. With that, I believe there's a motion for adjourn. Motion by DeForest to adjourn, second by Dunkin. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you for your time.